Welcome to the Why Not podcast with me, Chrissy Hawkins. In a world where everybody always asks why, I'm here to ask, why not? I'll be breaking down the mindsets of guests as well as my own in a bid to find out what makes people say, why not? Hi guys, and welcome back to Why Not podcast. So today I have an interview with Margerat Young. So she is the owner of Wild Soul Yoga and Wellness, and today we talk all about yoga, how she got into yoga and the differences between yoga. So there's a few different types of yoga. She explains all that. We talk about maybe some misconceptions about yoga and how she actually started online and had to go from online to in person, which is really interesting because it's normally the other way around. So really interesting podcast today. If you're interested in doing yoga and have thought maybe I'm not flexible enough, we talk about how that is not an issue. As ever guys, if you want to sit back and relax or walk and listen, here is my interview with Margerat Young. Hi guys, and welcome back to the Why Not podcast. So today I have got Margerat Young of Wild Soul Yoga and Wellness. Margerat is a yoga instructor and wellness entrepreneur, and I'm going to let her tell you a little bit more about herself. So hi Margerat, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks a million. I'm delighted to be here. I started listening to your podcast recently and I'm loving it. As you said, I'm a yoga teacher and a wellness entrepreneur. So I specialize in vinyasa, yin and restorative. We'll probably talk at some stage about those different styles. I do group classes for studios and online classes and corporates. And then wellness wise, then I did a range of sweatshirts in the summer, limited edition range of sweatshirts, and they will be back in October. And I also have a candle as well. So the candle comes with access to an online hub of wellness practices like videos, meditations and visualizations. So it's not just yoga, but a lot of yoga. Yeah,
that's brilliant actually, like especially with the access at the candle. It's not just like, you know,
yeah,
the candle.
I wanted to make it exactly. I want to make it a little bit different. So I was like, how can it be a wellness candle? You know, rather than just calling it a wellness candle, I was like, how can I make it a little bit different to all the many lovely candles out there? So it is a gorgeous, fresh smelling candle, but you also get a little bit of an experience. So hopefully encourage people to light the candle and just pick even a 5-minute meditation and just do a little bit of self-care, do a face mask or whatever, just a little bit of me time.
I love that.
So that's the idea behind
it. It is actually a wellness candle.
Yes. Yeah.
How did you get into this line of work?
Into yoga. You know, I've been kind of racking my brain, where did the yoga all start? And I think it came from when I was a child. I was really into beauty and especially natural beauty. Like I would try and make like toners and things from boiling herbs and all that kind of thing. So I was really into like the Body Shop and their whole like ethical trading and against animal testing and all that. So I started reading books from the library about like holistic medicine and raw foods and all that. So that's kind of where that started. Now I have to say, like, it being the 80s and that, I didn't put a lot of that into practice. You know, I mean, I was only a child and we didn't have like, my mom is more of a like meat, potato and 3 veg. She wasn't interested in my ideas about vegetarianism and raw stuff. So
was it?
Yeah, exactly. So that was just kind of what I was into as a child. And I think I actually started going to yoga classes, or we probably started with doing videos. I think, as far as I remember, it was yoga videos, which is even before DVDs. I even had books about yoga before I'd ever even taken an asana, a posture, like. So that's where it started anyway. I think it's been so long that I can barely remember, like. Yeah.
And you weren't originally a yoga teacher, were you?
No, so I'm only qualified since June last year. So qualified during the lockdown. Yeah, so I was originally a lot of different things, including a PA. So mostly a secretary and a PA in the health industry. So.
And what made you change careers?
That's probably a whole podcast in itself, but I kind of climbed the ladder a little bit. I was feeling a bit disillusioned and I'd had a few different roles in that career that I really disliked, a lot of kind of bureaucracy and things like that. And I decided that I didn't want to be an employee anymore, basically. So in 2017, I decided I didn't really know what I was going to do. I had this vague idea. I did a start your own business course, and I just went with that first idea that I had, which was the virtual assistant thing. And by the time the 10 weeks was over, I had resigned that day. So I've been self-employed since 2017. And then it kind of evolved. Then when I did the teacher training, I kind of lost interest in my first business in a way. But COVID kind of killed what was left of that business anyway, because I was working freelance for doctors.
Oh, okay.
Like, so like aesthetic doctors and not so much in public outpatients, anything like that, but like doctors that were doing Botox that I was doing PA for, they couldn't practice. So that stage I kind of lost interest anyway. I was halfway through my teacher training. So, but I kind of consider that business to be like my training for this business. It was like the business degree that I never got. So I think I just really wanted to be self-employed, and I was willing to kind of, I think like your natural instinct would be to do something similar to what you were doing, only on a freelance basis, and then maybe figuring out where you want to go from there.
So it kind of came like in a good time, in a sense, like you were kind of moving away from it anyway, and then COVID kind of forced you in a sense, but you're already in the yoga teacher. It was kind of
it all kind of that kind of worked out well, because like when I did qualify, which was last June, when I qualified with my 200 hour, the studios had just closed. Well, they were a couple of months closed, but some studios were taking kind of a little bit of time to go online, because they didn't know how long this was going to last, whereas I was online from day one. I never got a chance to teach in person at that stage, so for a long time I had only ever taught online. So me and anybody else who would have qualified at the same time and went straight into being a full-time teacher would have had that experience. So we kind of would have done things the opposite way around. So it wasn't as kind of a challenge, I suppose. So for some teachers that had been teaching in person for years, to go online was like a really big stressful thing. Whereas for me, it was just, that's my normal. Having real people in front of me is more unusual for me.
Yeah, what was that like actually? If you started online, going from online to like in person, like was that a bit like, was it daunting?
Terrifying. Yes, terrifying. Yeah. So I only got to do I got to do a good few last summer, and then we locked down again. But yeah, it's really weird that first time, especially when we sit there and there's people and they're looking at you, and they're not in a little tiny square. And I don't have when I teach online, I always had my class plan ready. And even now, sometimes when I teach in person, I'd have a class plan. I always had like my notes just out of shot, you know what I mean? So, but when there's people actually eyeballing you, and you're just like, oh my God. And then sometimes even now I get a bit confused with the mirroring, because the mirroring for the Zoom and then the mirroring. Yeah, Yeah,
I had to do mirroring as part of when I was doing my course. We did like exercise to music and step aerobics, and I had to do mirroring for that. And I don't know my left from my right at the best of times. Let alone when I had to do it the opposite direction in front of people. I have no coordination. I can't dance, and I can't keep time with music. So I had to do that and go the opposite way.
Yeah, I know. It's not easy. I never realized as a student, it never occurred to me. Like, that's one of the hardest things. I was only thinking about that today while I was teaching. I was like, once you're kind of confident in your poses and what you're doing and all that, the mirroring is still the challenge. Like, yeah. But if you go wrong, I went wrong today and everyone just laughed. It's fine. And anyway, some people, like, you tell them to roll to the right, and somebody always rolls to their left.
Me. Even when I'm not mirroring, I go the wrong direction.
There's always at least one person there that does the other hand, and then what can happen is you end up facing someone that you shouldn't be facing, then you're like, oh, I should be this way. But it's fine. Yeah, so a lot of Zoom classes, but it was really like, it's really handy if you're teaching a class from your attic, because you've got no commute.
That was
it's only now that I'm driving everywhere, like here, there and everywhere in the car the whole time. going to
Yeah,
different
I'm lucky.
studios.
I'm only 10 minutes from where I work, so thankfully I just have to go down
Yeah,
there. But
yeah.
yeah, I did enjoy even in the last lockdown. Like I could have used a gym because it was in my 5K, but I set up a gym in my bedroom. I just used to roll out of bed and go straight train there.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot to be said for it.
Got a bit lazy during it, I have to say.
I know.
Can
Yeah.
you actually explain the different types of yoga, just for people who don't know? A
Yes,
kind
I
of idea.
can. Yeah. Yeah. I had somebody ask me this morning because the class I did this morning in the studio was a flow. And she said to me afterwards, what's the difference between vinyasa and flow? And I was like, vinyasa is flow. Vinyasa basically means flow in Sanskrit. But flow just sounds kind of easier to understand. So in a vinyasa class, there's a little sequence called taking a vinyasa. So in a vinyasa or flow class, you generally take a couple of or any number of vinyasas. So you're basically going from down dog back to down dog in a couple of moves. So that's what a vinyasa class is. But you can have like a slow paced vinyasa or a really powerful vinyasa. And then yin is a style where you have very few poses in the class and you hold each pose for a long period of time. So you're looking to feel sensation in the body, which you would rate out of 10. And then, the instructor would say, we're looking for an edge of 4 or 5 here, whatever. So that's how much sensation that you can feel. And then you hold it in stillness for however many number of minutes, could be anything up to 12 minutes. And yin is more, yin is more for, it's for the connective tissues and the fascia. It's not so much for the muscles. So it's not the end of the world if your muscles do the work. If they're warm like beforehand, the muscles will tend to do the work. But if your body's nice and cold, cool, you're going to tissues and the fascia. So yin has like, you do feel good after it. And I've got a lot of people saying that they feel really stretched out after it and they feel calm. But to me, it's a much more kind of long-term gain yoga style because it works on your connective tissues and your joints. It does fantastic things for the spine and detoxification of in the connective tissues, like the free radicals and things that get stuck in the body. So that's kind of to me, that's a long-term gain kind of class. And then restorative is the other one that I kind of specialize in. And restorative, you hold the poses for a long time as well. And you might have the same number of poses as you would in a yin class or less. But in restorative, you don't want any edge, you don't want any sensation. So you prop yourself to within an inch of your life, like use as many bolsters, cushions. Like when I was doing it during lockdown, I was telling people to get every cushion and pillow off their bed, get everything, prop yourself up completely into the poses. So you could have like a hip opener, but you're completely supported in it. So the hips you're still getting the benefits of the opening, but the body is really supported and it's more kind of healing and balancing.
Okay.
So yin and restorative are two styles I get confused. And before I had studied them, I would be a little bit confused myself because they do have a lot in common, but in another way, they're completely different.
Yeah, the way you explain them, I can see how they would be different, but also how it can be easily confused for people who maybe not know the difference. Like,
yeah, so when you're in restorative, you shouldn't be feeling any sensation. Like I had someone once say to me, "Oh, my hips were a bit sore the next day." I'm like, no, they should not be. You need to prop more.
yeah,
Like you shouldn't have any pressure, any sensation at all. Like last night, somebody fell asleep a few times in their restorative poses, which is great. I love when that happens.
That's kind of what you want, is it?
Yes, exactly. And I had someone else who's recovering from surgery told me that it lowered, she has to monitor her heart rate, and she told me that the restorative really lowered her heart rate.
Yeah.
So they're the kind of benefits. So for restorative, like it's a good balance if the rest of your week is hectic, whether that's through your job or your lifestyle or your other workouts. So it's definitely not a workout in inverted commas, but it's a balance to the others. And then yin definitely would be a workout, but that's also a balance to the more active.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And then would your vinyasa kind of be your most active then?
Yes, it would. The ones that I do, like there is Ashtanga and Rocket, but I don't. I haven't studied those. I have done Yoga Nidra, which is I haven't actually done much of it since I qualified in it. But Yoga Nidra is actually not an asana, not a posture at all. the nidra is actually the instructor talking, and the practitioner lies down and listens, and it's to do with your brain waves. It's dropping into that point between being awake and asleep.
Yeah.
So it's still yoga, because yoga, the word itself, the whole thing, it doesn't always mean movement. That's just 1/8 of it. So you might see, yoga nidra advertised. Sometimes it's done at the end of like a workshop for yin or something like that, but it's not a pose. It's not a posture at all. It's just lying, hopefully getting yourself into that half asleep, half awake kind of twilight. Yeah. So I hope that's helpful and not even more confusing.
No, I think that's good actually, and it's a good explanation. I like the way you said as well that yoga isn't just about the poses. Could you actually expand on that a little bit, actually? Because I think people do just think that's what it is.
Yeah, and I can totally understand why. Yeah, of course. So yoga is the philosophy, and there's eight limbs to that philosophy, and asana, the movement, is just one. So breath is another one, and then the kind of the ethics around it, they'd be 2 of them. And then, now don't feel like I'm doing my exam now, I'm trying to desperately remember them all. Then there's like meditation, breath work, and so asana is actually only one part. So it's not so much that I'm getting a bit deep now. You don't do yoga, you are yoga.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, that's a bit deep. Sometimes in class I'll say, set an intention for your, if you want to set an intention for your class, but think of it as something that you can take off the mats. So if you want to, like, if your intention for your practice is to have patience with yourself, then you also want to bring that off the mat. It's not just for that hour that you're going to have patience with yourself when your ego is trying to push you deeper into a pose or whatever. You want to take it off the mat. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get you. Yeah. And would you say people thinking in, like, say, the asanas are the only part of yoga, would you say that's the biggest misconception you find, or do you find any other misconceptions?
It's one of them. And I always say to people, because people always apologize, like, straight away. Like, I say, oh, well, have you been doing much? Because everywhere is reopened, I'm saying, have you been doing much, over lockdown or whatever? And people always apologize. No, yes, but then I didn't, and I'm not flexible. They're all like kind of preempting it. And I'm like, it's not about that. It's really not about that. And also, like, it's important to mention as well, it's not just for, like, able-bodied people, for want of a better word. If you can breathe, the quote from one of the books is, if you can breathe, you can do yoga, because it's not always about the movement. So if you can breathe, then you're alive. So therefore, everyone who's alive can do yoga.
Yeah.
So do you know what I mean? So, like, and just on that note as well, I did study adaptive yoga, and I do teach chair yoga. I just haven't had an opportunity to do as much as I would like to, yes, because I haven't been able to get into, like, resident nursing homes or anything like that. But it is something, because I feel like, as you said, that can be a misconception, and it's not just for young, bendy, fit, flexible people. You can be 90 and in a wheelchair. My mom's 83 and she's done some of my chair yoga. She had a problem with her spine, but there's still poses she can do, and she can still breathe.
Yeah.
So she can still do yoga. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, that you get that a lot of people, isn't it? Like, we get as well. It's like, it's almost like, I want to get fit before I go to the gym, and like, I'm not flexible enough for yoga. It's like, no, you are. You just come in and you'll be okay. Like,
if that is something that you want, if that's one of your goals, well, then the only way it's going to happen is by going. It's not going to happen by not doing it. I'm sure you hear that all the time with weights. Like, I'm not strong enough. Well, you're only going to get strong enough.
Or like the way you said about the apologize, and like, oh yeah, look, I'm going to be so bad because I haven't done it in ages. And I'm like, well, the only way you get better again is by doing it. Like, it's no big deal.
Yeah, a lot of people
if you haven't trained for 3 months, I don't care.
Yeah, well, you just need to know for their program. But other than that, like, you're not expecting them to be Arnold Schwarzenegger.
No.
I just say him because there's a big, huge poster of him in our gym, and I love him. But yeah,
he's like our God, I think. Everyone.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know. But other misconceptions about touching the toes, and I think youth is probably one as well. And I was probably guilty of that myself, because when I signed up for teacher training, I convinced myself I was going to be the oldest person there. I thought everybody else was going to be millennials, and that wasn't the case at all. I was probably about half. Like, if you were to line everybody up by age, I was probably at the halfway mark, I'd say, or even lower. So that's a misconception that I was guilty of. So it's not just for young millennials.
Millennials, that's a great one.
I know. I think I'm Generation X, it's called. But yeah, I mean, misconceptions about meditation, and like that yoga is a religion, which it's not, and that you have to, if you're going to go to a yoga class, then you're going to have to start drinking cacao and burning sage. You can if you want, but you don't have to.
That's a really good one, actually. I like that.
Now, having said that, I only just bought sage for the first time recently, and I've tried it once or twice. I've also tried drinking cacao, but I just want to try things. Doesn't mean, like, you don't have to go full on hippie.
Yeah, but you're a yoga teacher, so you should try all this, right?
Yes, of course. Yeah, I'm trying everything. Like, I'm trying acupressure mats and flotation tanks and anything.
Acupressure mats class.
I'll try.
I
don't know about
get
doing
behind
a
that
class.
one.
Oh, sorry, I thought you meant a class. Yeah, no, my husband does it every night for like 20 minutes. And then sometimes I'll jump on it for 10 minutes as well. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, no, I'm totally down with that one. Do people as well think, like, with meditation, they're like, you're going to come out doing the Buddha after doing one class of meditation?
Yeah, they do a bit, but most people, when they try it, they're pleasantly surprised. And like, because I'm not someone who can just still my mind and sit in silence, I'll always kind of lean towards visualization meditations, because I feel like if you have something to focus on, but that's also a form of meditation itself, where you focus singly on one thing, whether that's your breath or like sometimes, like, I'm really into chakras, I have to say. So I do a lot of like chakra balancing meditation. So you're visualizing the different colors and wheels of light. So that can be good as well, to keep the mind to focus on something.
Yeah.
So yeah, people are usually quite pleasantly surprised about meditation. Yeah. But I mean, it's a work in progress for me as well. I'm no like expert at it, just because I teach it and I fall off the wagon, and then I always feel better when I do it. But I love I prefer visualizations as well myself.
Yeah, I can get that, actually, because I do find it very hard if I am trying to do a little bit, or trying to stay still. And I think people think they're doing it wrong when they can't keep their mind quiet.
Yeah, I always say, like, notice your thoughts, notice what arises, and let it flow off.
Yeah.
I would say, don't beat yourself up when you notice that you're engaging with it. Just when you notice you're engaging with it, let it go and come back to the breath or whatever you're visualizing. Yeah, but then it's important not to beat yourself up, because then you'll go off on another tangent of self-criticism in your head when you're supposed to be doing something positive for yourself, and then you'll end up be counterproductive then if you get to the end and go, oh well, I couldn't focus.
Yeah,
and especially with the outdoor classes at the moment as well, I'm noticing that some people are just go straight into the zone, and some people that are really easily distracted, they're like hitting the insects away, and they're being distracted by flies and things, and I'm like, they don't bother me anymore, so I must have progressed a tiny little bit in my meditation. But some people just go straight. And that's another good thing about in person compared to online, actually, is that you kind of have that accountability of the teacher being there looking at you. Whereas online, even when I take online yoga classes, like especially during the opening meditation, I'm finding it very hard to kind of settle in. Like you might still look at your phone once or twice, or messing with your camera or whatever. It can be hard to like come to stillness. But the more you do it, the easier it gets. And it's like with your nervous system, like the more times you bring your nervous system down, the easier it is to do it again.
Yeah, that's very
Like it's
true.
like you're resetting your baseline. So the more that you meditate or whatever, even if it's just 5 minutes, start a class or whatever, the more you do it, the easier it is to then go back into that zone.
What do you find is the students' biggest take up, where like change they find when they take up yoga?
Um, a big one is sleep, that they sleep really well after. So a lot of times the next day they'll say, oh my God, I slept so well. I slept for 11 hours. I slept for 12 hours. Or like I was saying, some people fall asleep during the class. Obviously not in the middle of it. I don't mean in the middle of a vinyasa class. They just sleep. I mean, at the end, I've had people like miss the end of the Zoom because they were fast asleep. Or two people this week didn't come out of Shavasana because they were still asleep. So I don't know whether I just have, that's my talent in life, putting people to sleep. But sleep is a big one, and it's a very important one, as you probably know yourself. Another one is a feeling of calmness. But they feel calm, and like that, like I was saying, the nervous system, the more times you feel that calm, the easier it is to get that feeling again.
Yeah.
And then fitness wise, usually it's like shoulders, just generally feeling stronger in the shoulders, feeling looser in the body, feeling a bit stronger. I had someone say they felt younger after Ian.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
What's one thing you've learned since you became a yoga teacher? Maybe a few things you've learned that maybe you didn't realize about it beforehand, or?
Oh, everything. The more I know, the more I realize I don't know. And if you ever notice, like yoga teachers, a lot of times will have on their Instagram bio that say yoga teacher and student. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not fully qualified and not in the middle of a course. It just probably means we're never going to know everything. Like never. It's like, it's for someone like I am quite a kind of analytical as well. Like I'm a bit like what they call a class A person. Is it a type A person? Type A person. So I like to like have clear goals and KPIs and spreadsheets and all that, as well as being like a creative person. I'm very analytical. So for me to know that I'll never know everything is a little bit of a challenge, but I'm kind of making my peace with it now. I'm never going to know everything. And every time I read a yoga book, and I'm always reading at least one, my mind just gets blown more. And you can't read them fast. You just can't. Well, I can't read them fast. I have to stop every few pages and let it absorb. And some of the philosophy, like I'll actually get a headache because I'm trying so hard to get my head around it. Like, but I love it. I love it, I have to say. So
shoulders is a big one, I'd say, as well, because everyone is so stiff in their shoulders. Like
I do
like small movements with people and they just can't do it. Like
I know it's so surprising when you do see people in the flesh now, and you're like, you realize that not everybody can, even when they're lying on their back, can get their shoulders down or bring their arms up over their head and get their hands down to the ground. Like, rest your hands down, but some people aren't actually able to bring their shoulders down. So it is amazing how much tension that we carry in our shoulders and our neck. And I always say that as well when we're warming up the neck, like be really mindful, because one side has been carrying handbags and school bags a lot more than the other. So it's good for evening out kind of imbalances in the body as well. So sometimes, especially in in-person class, I would say we'll find which side is not as strong as the other, and then we'll spend a little bit longer on it, try and like correct, don't like use the word correct, but try to just bring more balance to the body.
As I noticed as well, people always say like, oh, that's harder on that side, and it's like, have to keep pointing out that it's completely normal.
Don't expect, like, if you do move on one side and go, right, we go to the other side, but don't just bring your hand to the same position that you did. See how it feels, because one side's not going to be the same as the other. Absolutely.
For people, like, people are quite surprised by that, I find.
I suppose you wouldn't, unless you've like studied like anatomy or fitness, you kind of don't realize as much. And then we're just kind of so in tune to it now. Like, we're very, very rarely symmetrical.
Not very, yeah. If you see my shoulders, if I stand upright, my left shoulder is like way higher than my right. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and like most people have like half a shoe size bigger than the other, or like one boob slightly bigger. I think most women have one boob slightly bigger, so one side of your top is falling down more than the other. Like, yeah. So yeah, that's what I would say. We're not like we didn't come off an assembly line, and especially with yin as well, because in yin, the first tenet of yin is that you come to the shape of the pose. It's how that shape looks like in your body on that particular day. It's never about trying to look like you're shooting photographs for a yoga book. It's that pose as interpreted in your body.
Yeah, that's great. You're saying it as interpreted in your body.
Yeah, and the two sides can be different. That's absolutely okay, especially with the hips. I find like if somebody's sitting with their feet together and their knees apart, one side might need one block to prop and one side might need two. So it's just bringing that kind of awareness.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Which is your favorite type of yoga and why? Because I specialize in two of them, but which would be your favorite?
I don't know. It kind of changes. Like, I mean, there's times when, I mean, vinyasa was the first one I studied, so I suppose that would be. But I love yin as well. And then whenever I do restorative, then I love that as well. But I feel, especially with restorative, I always feel really like lucky after the class. Like that I get to be the person, like for that hour in that place, to be the person that helps people to get into that calm state and stuff. Like it's really like, I don't want to get too cheesy here, but with restorative, like it's not a physical practice for me to teach, but it's more about holding space, which is something that a concept that I didn't really understand until I did my 500 hour. So I suppose whichever one I've just taught is my favorite. That's fair. And also it kind of changes, like, you know, the way sometimes in the month you're more energetic than others.
Yeah.
So it kind of depends what's going on with me as well.
Yeah.
Like if you were to do, I think I have a good balance, because if I was to do all of one type, then I wouldn't be getting that balance. So like vinyasa, it would be considered a yang practice, as in yin and yang. So doing both yin and vinyasa with a bit of restorative thrown in gives me a good balance as well, and energy output as well for me. And yeah,
that's good. Yeah, that's a good point. It's kind of nice in a way, but also I get that. Like I like to try and learn as much as possible. I'm like, wait, hold on, I'll never get everything on this. What?
Yeah, I know. It's a bit of a mindset kind of shift that you'll never graduate. Like I have my 500 hour. Actually, I have 530 hours because I did yin twice. Long story, but anyway, but like so I'm, for people who don't understand about the whole kind of qualification thing, 200 is the minimum that you need to be a teacher, but most people go on to do their 500, but not everybody does. It's really expensive actually to do your 300 as well. Yoga teacher training can be really expensive, but you can do shorter trainings and get 30 hours here and 50 hours there, whatever. And there's plenty of teachers who have way more than 500. They never stop learning. But in answer to your question, everything.
Did you find that? No, this is something I found when I started doing my PT course. Like I was training for years, like, and I was like, oh yeah, I know everything. And then you like go and you're like, oh my god, I know nothing.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. And I never will know everything. But that's like, it's like a pinhead of information about yoga. You know what I mean? It's thousands of years old. It's an entire philosophy. It's not just anatomy. It's not just the poses. It's not just sequencing a class. It's not just holding space. It's not just trauma informed. It's just so much to it. Like,
and like when you do 500, when you do a 500, does that mean like, so you've done your 200, you have to do another 500? Do you do an extra?
No, you do three. You do a three. So basically, I did a 300. I did that 300 online during lockdown, during the January to March lockdown this year, because I thought, oh, how amazing would it be to have the 500, to come out of lockdown with 500. So, and I kept believing all the headlines, 2 more weeks, 6 more weeks, whatever. So I absolutely like worked myself into the ground doing my 300 hours in 10 weeks, which is, I'm sure people have done it shorter, but it was a lot considering I was teaching as well. There was, you know, hours and hours and hours and hours of live lectures and recorded lectures and karma, 20 hours of karma classes. So it was a lot, but yeah, so that's how you get that. You can go from 0 to 500. You do the 500 in one go. I don't think I know anybody who's done that.
I say that'd be
That would be a
intense
lot.
though.
Yeah, so the 200 I did over weekends, over like 10 months. So normally that's one of the most popular ways, is a weekend a month over nearly a year.
Yeah.
And then there's in-person 300s, and like that you do a weekend a month for a year.
Yeah.
It was just because of lockdown, the opportunity arose to do it online with a school in Texas.
Oh wow, so you're doing
brilliant.
it that far away.
Yeah. Honest to God, it was one of the most amazing, if not the most amazing experience of my life. Was that it was really hard and really intense, but it was brilliant. Like what I learned, and all the different people from all over the world, like that we'd be on the calls with.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Yeah.
That's actually really cool. Like, and it's mad. It shows you like the reach of internet as well. Like, you were able to do this with a school in Texas from Ireland.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, apparently they used to do it, but it wasn't. They used to do this course, but it wasn't recognised by Yoga Alliance. But because of COVID, they reassessed and said, yes, you can do it online, which meant they could open it up to the world. So
yeah,
that was one of the most amazing positives to come out of this whole situation, and was that I was able to do it for a lot less. Not that I want to take the money out of Ireland, but be about $3,000 to do it in person here. So I don't know when I would have gotten around to it, whereas to do it online with Texas was €492.
I can see why you went.
Yeah. And only that I know somebody who was already doing it, I would have said, nah, that's a scam. That's not real. I never would have believed it.
Yeah.
Only that I got a personal recommendation. Yeah.
And it worked out well as well. So that's brilliant as well. Especially like when we're stuck in not being able to do something, like may as well
you
make
might
use of the time.
as well. Yeah, you might as well. Like, I'm sure there's people that plenty of people took up cooking and different thing, probably learned a language. So that was my kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that was kind of my way of coping as well, especially like in the first lockdown. I was like studying hard as well, because that was just my coping mechanism. The way some people kind of reacted differently to others. In those very early days, I went into hyper productive mode. Like, I was up at a set time. I'd study from this time to this time. I'd exercise from this time to this time. Even my breaks and lunch were like, I was over the top regimental.
Yeah.
That was just how I coped. It took me a few months to realize that was just a coping mechanism, the way some people went into denial or whatever. But if you can come out of it if you come out of it alive and intact and with your mental and physical health, that's all that matters. If you happen to have gotten a qualification as well, well then that's a bonus. Like, I don't want to sound like, like everyone should have been like achieving loads. Like, if you came out of it unscathed and you still had like an income, or you still have your house, well then
that's still a win.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right though. People do cope with things different ways. I would have been similar to you. The first one though, I was a little bit like faffy around, but the last one I was literally like, no, I'm getting up at this time every day. I'm gonna do this, and this, and like, it was the only way I needed to keep myself in a structure.
Yeah,
for it. Like,
that's just how some people cope, and that's okay.
Yeah, and if your way of coping was chilling, that's okay too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I did do a lot of chilling as well.
Oh yeah, like I managed to fit that in. It was great. Like, I'd finish in the evening, I'd just flake with Peter for the evening. It was great.
Yeah, wearing loungewear for weeks on end.
Yeah, gym gear and pajamas. That was it.
Yeah,
which hasn't changed much now, but still.
The problem is now, if you go to put heels on, the feet won't be able to cope.
I have
slippers.
Yeah, I haven't worn heels in like 2 years, so I'm not looking forward to
that. No, me too.
That'll be interesting. Okay, so I think that's everything I have to ask you, Bar. I have one other question, and I always ask this at the end, and it's, what is the best piece of advice you've ever gotten? And you can pick more than one, because I do always let people.
Okay. Of course, I had loads and I can't remember half of them, but one big one would be to say yes and figure it out later.
Yeah.
So say yes to opportunities, even if you don't know exactly how to do the thing, and figure it out. So say with this podcast, or more so, this is my third podcast, but especially when I was asked to do my first podcast, I nearly died of fright. But I always try to remind myself to do this, to make decisions based on love and not fear. So if I'm saying yes or no to something, I'd say, am I saying that because I'm scared of that? Like, say if it's with a client that you mightn't really think it's going to work out, but are you scared you're not going to make enough money otherwise? Or are you just scared you're going to make a fool of yourself? So you're making a decision on fear. Don't make it on fear.
Yeah.
So I've kind of gone into two there instead of one. My original one was to say yes and figure it out later.
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't lose an opportunity because you don't know exactly how you're going to get there, how you're going to do it. Are you able to do it? Yes, you are able to do it. So say yes.
That's a really good one.
Yeah.
I like that, actually.
Good.
And then
what else, Becca? Can't really think. Like, I have a few kind of businessy ones, like don't ask someone to do something you wouldn't do yourself. That's more of like when I was a manager, like kind of a leadership. That was kind of my leadership kind of motto. And then the other side of that, saying yes to opportunity, and I stand by that completely. But also learning to say no as well has been a thing for me that I'm trying to do. So, like I said, it's a little bit about the whole fear and love thing. So not being afraid to say no to something, if saying yes to it was out of fear.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like that as well.
Yeah. Like, I'm someone who I'll say no, but I'll be like, no, but I can do it next week, or no, but I always like give too much, and I'll like give stuff away, or just too soft, I suppose, in a way. So I'm trying to learn to set, I think what it's called, energetic boundaries.
Energetic
Say
boundaries.
no without feeling guilty. Like, I don't know if it's an Irish thing, a female thing, or a generation thing. I don't know what it is, but I hate saying no. And even when I do say no, I say I hate saying no, but I really kind of need to say no. So I'm saying no,
spend
but
the
I'm
next
really
2 days thinking how you could work it in because you feel so bad about saying no.
Yeah, exactly. So that's something I'm working on. So try to look at things through the lens of is your decision on love or fear?
Yeah, I like that one. That's a really good one.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I think we shall finish off with that. But before you go, Margaret, tell everyone where they can find you.
My website is wildsoul.ie. On Instagram, I'm Margs Young. You can call me Margs or Margaret, I don't mind. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, you name it, but mostly Instagram is where I am 24 hours a day nearly. And wildsoul.ie. Wildsoul.ie. Sweatshirts will be back in October for your Christmas shopping.
Oh yeah, so everyone make sure you get on them because they are really nice. Yes, I have seen them.
They are, yeah.
So my sister rocking them.
They are. I do. Yeah, exactly. I do say so myself. Yeah, they are fab.
Cool. So, and as ever, guys, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok. It's Chrissy H Fitness. And I just want to say thanks again for joining us today, Margaret.
Thanks so much, Chrissy. Really enjoyed the chat. Thanks for having me.
Thank you again for listening to the Why Not podcast. It really means a lot that you are listening in, and I would love if you could please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or subscribe on Spotify. And always, I'd love to hear feedback personally, so if you do want to leave me a message and let me know how you found the podcast, please do.